Welcome back to another N-Cut movie review. Today we have Five Nights at Freddy, and we pretty much don't know much about this film. It's just, this is basically from an audience perspective. We have no idea about the lore, none of that. We had to look up most of this stuff, but we hope you enjoy. Let's get into it. The plot of this film is based off the game. So the game is full of animatronic bears that try to unalive the security guard working, and you have to survive 5 nights. Now, cut to Mike, now getting the job at Freddys. He is the one who is taking on this challenge of surviving 5 nights there. There is a lot of twists and turns within this movie, but Mike is the main character, and Mike also has a lot of things going on in his life. His little brother was kidnapped, and on top of that, he's now looking after his little sister. He has to provide for her, so therefore he needs a job, and this is how he wound up at Freddys.
One glaring issue with this film is the pacing, we feel, watching it, especially as people who aren't really familiar with the lore of Five Nights at Freddy. The opening scene, I think, was quite a good adaptation to the game. I haven't actually played it myself, but from what I know of this film, the opening scene is a security guard, and he's at Freddy Fazbear's pizzeria, and he's getting
Fazbear. Freddy Fazbender.
Freddy style bender. The opening scene starts with the security guard who's working at the Last Airbender's pizzeria, and he gets killed in fashion that I believe is conducive to the game. And then unfortunately after that, the pacing of this film is quite boring. And yes, this sort of acts as like a prequel to the game and the beginning of the lore. And this film is sort of like a prequel in a way, even though the animatronic characters are already set in the film. It's sort of a way to explain how they turned really evil. So there's a lot of lore filler in between it being a horror and it being like a kids friendly movie. This film is kind of a bit boring in those middle scenes. It'll be good for people who are familiar with the game, because there's a lot of good Easter eggs in there, a lot of good little pointers to the game. But for someone who's coming to this as not a fan of the game or not even know anything really about the game, and just a horror fan or a horror movie fan who knows, I guess, the title, which is Five Nights at Freddy, it's sort of a bit boring. It drags on a little bit, because you're sort of expecting it to be, I guess, a horror film. Yes, it has a PG-13 rating, which of course it would have to, because I think it's considered a kids game. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's considered a kids game. And that sort of holds it back a little bit in a few stages, which I guess, it's PG-13. You can't make it super gory Saw-like, because then you have parents going crazy in the cinemas, kids running out of the cinemas. Even though I feel the scenes that are quite gory, I think, for a PG-13 movie.
It definitely wouldn't even hit their target demographic, because their whole demographic is literally for kids. So them having an R18, which would amuse us because we are very unfamiliar with it, would definitely not hit their normal audience. So what's the point of them making money, which I think it is, even from this quick opening weekend.
The horror scenes that were in it, while they were good, yeah, like we said, few and far between. Like, for instance, the crew at Five Nights at Freddy, the bear, like the animatronic people, the actors are in suits, and they actually do a really good job of working with what they've got to make it actually quite horror film-ish, because obviously I think one's a bear, one's a fox, one's a duck.
The other's a bear.
And the other one's a bear as well. Like, so that's not really something that you would look at as scary or haunting, but they do a good job to sort of make the scenes scary with what they've got, lurking in the corner, lurking in the dark. I guess like the glow eyes make it a little bit scary, I suppose.
The way they move around in the suits, the way they're able to like be hunched over, the way they're able to scare you without actually even moving as well, like always being behind someone randomly. For instance, when people come into this Freddy Fazbear to try and break it up and make Josh look like he's going to lose his job, then they are randomly just in different closet rooms. They're in just haunting everyone. I think as the game probably shows as well what it's supposed to be like. As long as you keep looking at the cameras, you'll be fine.
There was a few little inconsistencies though, which I don't get why films try and do this for themselves. Continuity errors, I guess.
For sure.
The Freddy's place gets trashed at the beginning or at some point in the film. And then, so it's trashed by about 5-6 people. And then Josh Hutcherson's character, who's a security guard at Freddy's, cleans the whole building up in 5 minutes, and suddenly he's works at O'Brien's Glass Repair, because he knows how to fix the arcade, the pinball machine glass. He knows how to fix the glass on the table, on like the table, the booths of the tables.
He re-welds the chair stints back together. Like, the guy is literally just a masterclass, isn't he? He's a jack of all trades.
Yeah, so that was like film, which was a bit like annoying. I don't get, if you were going to do that, keep it the same way. Like, you could tell that obviously, which is fair, which happens in most movies, is that it was filmed on one set, the smashing of the Freddys, and then they had another set, which was the Freddys that they filmed in for the rest of the film. film.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was a little bit of a continuity error that I didn't really enjoy. But I guess what they're trying to do is just give as much faith to the lore and to the making it look exactly like the game, which is what they did.
What I didn't understand was that when they were talking a lot about the story, about the character development, they didn't really speak to the character enough. It was either too little or too much. The only person that was kind of too much informed was Josh. Was Mike. Yeah. His information was kind of all sporadically over the place as well, because we don't really know why he was dreaming about his brother the entire time, and then we find out that he was taken, but then he's trying to get him back for some reason, because does he think he's alive the entire time? I don't even know what that's about.
That's a good point that you make there, like about the fact that they're trying to flesh out the lore of this film, and it's like they had all these different plot points, but they'd never actually like hit on any of those plot points. They just sort of like either expected you to sort of understand or know the lore, I guess, from the games, or they just left it open-ended, and it sort of was a little bit annoying. Like, they had all these little plot points that it's like they were trying to set up this really intricate movie, like really lots of plot lines, lots of sub-stories, lots of you investigate and you figure it out sort of thing, but then it was just like, no, this is a basic film. This is a basic video game adaptation, fanfic game that they want people who are fans of Five Nights at Freddy to watch, and then maybe, you know, some people who don't know anything about the game to come watch too. It just sort of seemed a bit weird, like how many plot lines and storylines and dialogues they opened up and then didn't touch on any of them at all.
I just didn't understand why that you had to know or anything about the film to enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, I wish that they would either they had too much film and had to cut it all the way down to make it enjoyable, or they just wanted to appease the fans.
Too much fan service.
Way too much. I think if people who have no idea about it, it doesn't even make me want to go play the games to find out, right? If I feel like if even made me did that, I'd be happy about it. But I have no inkling to go do that.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually as well to hit on. The fact that this is a video game adaptation, it did not make me feel, as someone, like Josh said, as someone who's never played the games before, to want to play the games at all. Because there was hardly any moments from the game in the film in regards to the actual objective of the game is to survive the 5 nights and the sneaking around and then using the video cameras. Like, there was hardly any of that. And this harkens back to the point that I made earlier about the fact that the pacing of this film, where it went from horror to like the lore side of the film back to horror, was so spaced far in between. You got little snippets of it here and there, but there was nothing really to say to me, go buy the game right now and play it. Especially because if you look at the news about this film, they're planning on turning it into a series, planning on turning it into I think it might be a trilogy. It's going to be like its own sort of universe world. I guess it is already anyway because it's got a game. You didn't have to try and shove every single Easter egg, every single plot line into the first film. You could have just really focused on one little aspect of the film to like really draw people in who haven't seen this, who haven't played the game before, or who aren't familiar with the Five Nights at Freddy series. And then in the next 2, 3, 4 movies, however many you decide to make, you can really push the fan lore, fan service in those.
The rating for me would be about 50%, only because of everything we've mentioned: character development, dialogue as well, weird. Certain aspects of the continuity are just 100% sucked, and I don't think that they paid enough attention to detail throughout this movie, which annoys me, especially when I'm watching as an audience member, not knowing what's going on. And when you go back and look at all the lore and what other people who are massive fans are saying, it's like, oh, it would have been cool to have known that. Explain that a little better, please. But yeah, that's my final score.
It's a tough one to score for this one, obviously, because we're not fans of the game. From a horror / I guess fantasy standpoint of a film, just for the plot holes and the pacing being quite boring, being quite slow, and the action horror scenes being few and far between, I'd probably rate it like a 50 as well. The direction was good, the acting was pretty average, the sets were good, they were good adaptations of the film, of the game, but yeah, for someone who doesn't know anything about the film, there's no real draw to this at all.
No.
You barely even see like Freddy and his boys doing their thing. Like that was the draw to I've seen clips of the game. The draw was to see Freddy and his crew doing like what they do in the game, their scary stuff, and you just don't really see that at all in this film. It's almost like a happy, friendly film, except for like 1 or 2 scenes. So yeah, that's where my rating of 50 comes from. And we'll be cutting that out because this is PG for the kids. This is for you kids.
So thank you guys for watching. I tell you what, you better subscribe to this. We hope you guys liked. Thank you. Peace. We out.
We out.
And cut.